I transmigrated into a novel and became a wealthy heir. Vanessa Whitmore, the villainess, was my sworn enemy. The kind where only one of us would make it out alive. At least that was how the original story was supposed to go. But I arrived a little earlier than the novel's timeline. Right now, I'm only in my early 20s, and Vanessa is still just a high school girl. As I watched her call me Ethan every other sentence, this underage high school version of the villainess who hadn't gone astray yet, I sank into deep thought. In the end, I decided to steer her future onto the right path. But I never expected her to go off the rails anyway. Wait a second. Why did you suddenly push me down? This wasn't how the original novel was written. Ethan, do you know how to solve this problem? Ethan, go on a date with me. Ethan, when I grow up, could we? No, it's nothing. On the soft plush bed, Vanessa grabbed my wrist and pinned me down. Her aggressively possessive gaze swept over my body. Then she licked her lips. Ethan, I turned 18 today. And now the story begins. Do you know how many years you'd get for making a move on a minor? At the dinner table, my best friend, Ryan Cole, suddenly blurted that out. I nearly sprayed the soda in my mouth everywhere. I wiped my mouth irritably. Couldn't you wait until I swallowed before asking? I specifically waited for this exact moment to say it. Ryan slowly swallowed the grilled meat in his mouth. 3 years minimum, possibly life in prison. You'd probably get shanked in prison. You really know how to make conversation. I poured myself another glass of soda. Ryan shrugged. So, why are you so determined to take in the Whitmore family's neglected third daughter? Don't tell me you fell for her looks. I heard she isn't even 18 yet. How is your mind this dirty at your age? And what's wrong with 18? I'm only in my early 20s myself. I reached out with my chopsticks and stole several freshly grilled slices of meat from his plate. As I dipped them in sauce, I said, I'll tell you the truth. I'm actually a prophet. I can see the future. And what did you see? I saw that in the future that little girl would become a terrifying she-devil. She'd pin me beneath her heel and torment me mercilessly, then lock me away and keep me all to herself. All right, you've listed the benefits. What's the downside? Ryan calmly said something utterly outrageous. I looked him up and down and silently shifted my butt farther away. I never knew you were such a freak. You're already talking nonsense. Why shouldn't I join in? Still, I'm sure you have your reasons. You don't have to tell me, and I won't ask. Ryan adjusted his glasses, picked up his phone from the table, and glanced at it. He stood up. Something just came up. I'm heading out. Take your time eating. Give the girl my regards. I pointed at the plate of meat he had brought over. You're not eating that. This meal's on me. You got it, boss. Have a good one. I waved goodbye to Ryan, then resumed my battle with the barbecue alone. The truth was, I hadn't lied. I really did know the future because I had transmigrated into this novel. About a month ago, after spending every day reading sugary romance stories online, a delivery truck sent me straight into another world. The moment I opened my eyes, I discovered that I had become a novel character who shared my name. According to the original plot, I would eventually offend the novel's villain, Vanessa Whitmore, the third daughter of the Whitmore family, abused and mistreated, who ultimately turned completely ruthless. Using her extraordinary business talent, she built an empire. But along the way, she committed countless crimes. Her story ended while she was fleeing the police when her car crashed into a fuel tanker. She died on the spot. Logically, I should have stayed far away from a dangerous woman like her. But things weren't quite what I had expected. When I arrived in this world, Vanessa hadn't turned evil yet. She was still just a beautiful high school girl under 18. At most, her family situation had made her a little gloomy. So, a few days ago, before the Carter and Whitmore families began business negotiations, I offered a piece of land on the east side of the city in exchange for the Whitmores handing Vanessa over to me. Of course, I threw in a few other concessions. News of it quickly spread throughout our entire social circle. Almost everyone thought the Carter family had lost their minds. They could say whatever they wanted. Nothing could be built on that land in the end anyway. As I enjoyed the peaceful pleasure of grilling meat by myself, I muttered under my breath, I'll have to contact an archaeological team soon. What are you talking about? A puzzled voice suddenly came from behind me. I turned around and saw a girl in a school uniform with her hair tied in a ponytail standing behind me. Her eyes held the pure innocent cluelessness only a student could possess. She looked like school had really done a number on her. Nothing. Have you eaten dinner? I asked. Vanessa sat across from me and nodded. I already ate. Then wait for me a little longer. I'm almost finished. And if you still want something, help yourself. With that, I began devouring everything in sight, vacuuming up the food on the table. Maybe I made it look too delicious. Because she eventually gave in and ate some, too. After dinner, Vanessa put her backpack on again without saying a word and quietly followed me before climbing into the back seat. I got into the driver's seat, started the car, and drove out of the mall's underground garage. It was already late, and there weren't many cars on the road. Bright moonlight slipped through a break in the clouds and shone across the pavement alongside the streetlights. Vanessa and I sat one behind the other without speaking. We drove toward my home in silence. Starting today, she was officially leaving the Whitmore family behind. We remained silent until the final intersection when I stopped at the red light. The girl who had been silent the entire time finally spoke. Why did you do that day? I propped one arm against the car window and lightly tapped the steering wheel with the other. Without changing my tone, I asked, do what? In the rearview mirror, Vanessa's lips parted, then closed again. Why did you choose me? With that piece of land, you could have gotten something far more valuable in return. You may have misunderstood something. The Carter family doesn't make bad deals. I smiled. You're worth far more than that land. You don't need to comfort me. Vanessa straightened slightly, then leaned back against the seat and hid herself in the shadows. I know exactly how worthless I am. I can't compare to my brother or sister, and my parents didn't care about me either. I know. That's exactly why I got you out of that place, I continued. From this moment on, forget everything they ever said about you. I'll help you prove your own worth. Why would you do that for me? Emotion finally entered the girl's voice from the back seat. I thought for a moment, maybe I simply wanted to see a happy ending in the original story. The things Vanessa eventually did could never be easily forgiven. But anyone with a little empathy would still feel heartbroken by her past. Her own parents despised her. Her brother and sister insulted her and treated her like a servant, ordering her around constantly just because she touched her sister's necklace once. She was slapped across the face. She didn't have any friends at school either. Honestly, if even a few of those things had happened to me, I would have wanted revenge on the entire world. Yet, even now, Vanessa was only a little gloomy and quiet. That already showed how incredibly strong she was inside. But no matter how resilient a person's heart is, there will always come a moment when it finally breaks. So, I had once wondered if all of this could be changed, what kind of ending would she have? Come to think of it, did this count as raising a villainess in some unconventional way? With that thought in mind, I looked into the rearview mirror again. The girl in the mirror still kept herself hidden in the shadows. But I could tell that she was looking directly at me through the mirror. Then let me ask you something. I spoke seriously. What would happen if I went after the Whitmore family and the Whitmore group? Vanessa answered without the slightest hesitation. I'd help you. Then I have nothing to worry about. The car fell silent again until Vanessa spoke once more. Her voice returned to its usual softness. The light's green. I hadn't noticed. I drove through the final intersection. My home was a large villa. Usually only my parents and I lived there with a few servants. Now, there was one more resident. When Vanessa walked through the front door, the lights were still on inside. My parents were curled up on the couch. William Carter was reading a book with glasses perched on his nose while Grace Carter cheerfully watched a variety show on television. Hearing us come in, they both turned toward the door. Vanessa hid half her body behind me and gave a restrained little bow. Good evening. Why are you two still awake so late? I greeted them. Were you waiting for me? William closed his book and said irritably, who would wait up for a brat like you? Who knows what you are off doing coming home this late? As he spoke, his gaze shifted past me toward the girl behind me. So, this is the girl you mentioned before. Come over and let us take a look. Ow. Ow. What are you doing? It's her first time here. Don't scare her. Grace shot her husband a glare and withdrew the hand pinching his waist. Then she turned to Vanessa with a kindly smile and waved. It's okay. Come over here. Seeing the scrutiny and approval in my mother's eyes, I had a feeling she had misunderstood something. But forget it. It didn't matter. Vanessa pressed her lips together and looked at me. After I nodded, she slowly walked toward the couch. At my mother's urging, she finally sat down beside her. Go ahead, ask me anything. At some point, William had moved to the armchair. For some reason, he was glaring at me, and it was starting to make me uneasy. I looked at Grace, who had already taken Vanessa's hand and started chatting with her about everyday life, then spread my hands to show it had nothing to do with me. I walked over and leaned against the back of the couch, pretending to sigh casually. So much for my status in this family. It seems you don't want your allowance anymore. You misunderstood me. I was actually talking about myself. William saw the smiling expression on his wife's face and said nothing more. He simply stood and told me, "Come to the study with me." Before leaving, I glanced toward Vanessa again. Under my mother's enthusiastic questioning, the girl looked somewhat at a loss, but overall, she didn't seem particularly resistant or nervous. She should be fine. Reassured, I followed William out. Their conversation drifted into my ears. Vanessa, what do you think of my son? Mrs. Carter, he's... When we entered the study, William sat in the chair behind the desk and motioned for me to sit across from him. I had barely taken my seat when he suddenly spoke. Your mother and I are planning to move out. Why? I froze. How come this is the first I'm hearing about it? Honestly, I didn't know until today either. William rubbed his forehead. Your mother said having two old people like us around would make it difficult for you young people to develop your relationship. Besides, most of her close friends have already moved into villas on the west side. She wants to take this opportunity to move there, too. Only then did I remember that our family owns several homes in the Western Villa district. Mom misunderstood the situation. I brought Vanessa here, not because. William raised a hand, signaling me to stop. It's all right, son. He advised earnestly. Your parents are very open-minded about these things. You don't need to explain. Besides, you're already at that age. It's time you started thinking about it. As he spoke, he stood up, walked around the desk, and came to my side. He placed a heavy hand on my shoulder. Son, I believe we raised you well. So before you do certain things, you need to think them through carefully. His roundabout speech was making my head spin. Dad, what exactly are you trying to say? That girl from the Whitmore family is certainly beautiful. William's hand on my shoulder tightened slightly, but she's still underage. Why is everyone saying that? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What are you imagining? Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Good. All right. Go back to your room and remind your mother not to keep talking for too long. The girl still has school tomorrow. William released me and left the study first. But when I returned to the living room, only Grace's voice remained. Vanessa was already gone. Where's Vanessa? I told her to go rest. Do you really think your mother has no sense of restraint and would keep her talking all night? Grace seemed to be in a good mood. I had no idea what she and Vanessa had discussed. Dad said you're planning to move out. Yes, probably within the next couple of days. Don't worry, son. I won't intrude on you two young people. No, Mom. You misunderstood. It's okay. Your mother understands. I was young once, too. Grace teased me. Then lowered her voice. But I wonder what kind of treatment Vanessa endured in her old home. I'd heard some rumors, and now it seems they were all true. That poor child. You'd better not bully her. You don't have to worry about that. I'll make sure she's well protected. I was very confident about that. After all, I was still counting on Vanessa to make me money. Considering what she would accomplish in the future, she would definitely make a great deal more. The Carter family might not be short on money, but who would ever complain about having too much? Grace gave her son a strange look as he suddenly began grinning foolishly. She shook her head, left the living room, and headed to her bedroom. Thanks to my mother's arrangements, Vanessa's room was right next to mine. When I turned off the hallway light and passed her room, I noticed light still shining through the gap beneath the door. What was she doing up so late? After thinking for a moment, I gently knocked on her door. Still awake? It was quiet behind the door for several seconds. Then I heard a faint rustling sound and soft footsteps. A moment later, the doorknob turned and the door opened a crack. Vanessa had changed into a light blue nightgown with a padded coat over it. Her ponytail had also been let down and her silky hair fell over her shoulders. Overall, some of her youthful awkwardness was gone and her presence seemed a little softer. With one hand still resting on the doorknob, she looked up at me with confusion in her eyes. Vanessa opened her mouth, hesitated for a second or two, as though considering how to address me. Ethan, is something wrong? I just noticed your light was still on. Are you still studying out of politeness? I didn't peer into her room. I'm still not used to this place. I can't sleep. She fell silent for a moment, then pulled the door open wider and stepped aside from the entrance. Although she didn't say anything directly, she was clearly inviting me inside. After a brief hesitation, I entered. The room was neat and clean with the overall feel of a young girl's bedroom. It looked like my mother had decorated it herself. An open workbook lay on the desk along with an uncapped pen and some scratch paper. I glanced at the problem. Math conic sections. People say desperation can make someone do anything, but I think math is the exception. If you don't know math, you simply don't know it. Finals are coming up soon, so I wanted to study a little longer. Vanessa walked over from the closed door. Do you know how to solve it? I tried to awaken the long-dead knowledge buried in my mind. Damn. Is this what it feels like to lose all your cultivation? After struggling for a few seconds, I gave up. I pointed at my head. You're giving me way too much credit. You have to understand, once you start college, your brain gets wiped as clean as a factory reset. So, you can't solve it? Vanessa asked as she sat on the edge of the bed. She twirled a strand of hair around her finger, looking inexplicably nervous. Most likely not. I changed the subject. Are you happy with this room? Vanessa lowered her gaze to the bed, her slender fingers brushed over the sheets. Honestly, I'm not used to it. It's so much better than my old room, and the bed is far more comfortable. All of this feels unreal. I remembered that back at her family's house, she had nearly been forced to live in a storage room. I rubbed my chin, then told her to try to get used to it soon. This is your room from now on. Mrs. Carter said a lot of things to me earlier. I think some of what she said made sense. After an oddly tense silence, Vanessa stopped twirling her hair. Biting her lower lip, she suddenly stood and walked toward me. As though she had made up her mind about something. What the hell did Mom say to her? I didn't know what she had told Vanessa, but I had a feeling what happened next might be heading somewhere inappropriate. Halfway through speaking, my voice stopped working. It was as if my entire body had jammed like a machine. The girl approached me somewhat stiffly. She removed the coat over her nightgown and tossed it onto the bed. The thin fabric revealed her well-developed figure. I also think that when someone treats a member of the opposite sex this well for no reason, they must have some other motive. For some reason, Vanessa felt incredibly intimidating at that moment. She stepped closer and I stepped back until I collapsed into the chair. So, this was why she had closed the door. The girl continued, I believe what you told me in the car. You rescued me from that place. I'm very grateful to you. If you need me to repay you. Vanessa leaned over me in the chair. She braced one arm against the chair beside my head and gripped the armrest with her other hand. A pleasant fragrance drifted from her body. Her already crimson face drew closer and closer, as red as a ripe tomato. She whispered beside my ear. If that's what you want, I'm okay with it. Let me start with the conclusion. I fled. First, a girl shouldn't casually say things like that, especially when she's extremely attractive. Second, it's far too early for you to be thinking this way. At least wait until you're an adult. And finally, it's getting late. Get some rest. I'm leaving. After rattling off those words at lightning speed, the young man, who had remained calm and collected in the car, fled the room in obvious embarrassment. Lying on the bed that was almost too comfortable to get used to, Vanessa buried herself beneath the covers. Her face still felt burning hot. Would he think she was an easy girl? That question kept echoing through Vanessa's mind as she tossed and turned in bed. Eventually, she exhausted herself, threw off the blanket, exposed her head, and sighed deeply. She hadn't lied about what she had just said. She had truly prepared herself to accept anything that might happen tonight. More than a decade of living with the Whitmores had taught her that since Ethan had specifically chosen her, he had to want something from her. But in Vanessa's eyes, other than herself, she had absolutely nothing to offer him. That was why she had decided to give herself to him. Yet, after wavering for only an instant, he had refused her and left her with those words. Do I have to wait until I'm 18? Vanessa murmured to herself. Memories surged through her mind like a tidal wave. It had been the day her life changed forever. Starting tomorrow, you'll be leaving this house. During dinner that day, her father, Richard Whitmore, had announced the news to Vanessa in front of the entire family. It wasn't a discussion or even a notification. It could barely be called an order. His tone made it sound like he was discussing something utterly insignificant without the slightest concern. Her mother, Helen Whitmore, showed no reaction beyond surprise. What happened? During the recent negotiations, the Carter family was represented by William Carter's son, Ethan. That inexperienced brat isn't nearly as difficult as his father. He quickly agreed to trade for that land on the east side. Richard spoke with smug satisfaction. His only condition was that we hand over a few ordinary storefronts owned by the Whitmore Group along with Vanessa herself. Who would have thought a man as capable as William Carter would raise a son who was nothing more than a lustful fool? Congratulations, Dad. You finally secured that land. Her eldest brother, Daniel Whitmore, happily raised his glass and clinked it against Richard's. Just as expected. Ethan Carter is nothing but a spoiled, useless, rich kid. I can't believe he gave up that land so easily. The head of the Carter family must be furious. Richard laughed loudly. Of course he is. That boy isn't even 1/10 as capable as my son. Ha ha. The Carter family may be more powerful than ours, but my son is far superior to Ethan. You can't entirely blame the Carter heir. After all, the only decent thing about our little sister is her face. It's just a shame Ethan is so handsome, but has such terrible taste. Her second older sister, Olivia Whitmore, glanced at the girl seated at the far end of the table. She said sarcastically, "Still, this is great. Once someone leaves, our home will finally be more peaceful." Seriously, Dad. She wrinkled my limited edition dress when she washed it yesterday. Aren't you going to stand up for me? Forget it. This is your sister's final day at home. As her older sister, you can tolerate it this once. In a few days, I'll buy you several more dresses like it. Thank you, Daddy. I love you the most. Laughter filled the room. But the lively scene felt impossibly distant from her. Vanessa sat with her head lowered in a seat in the corner. Her bowl contained noodles she had cooked herself. Nothing like the lavish meal on the other side of the table. From beginning to end, she never voiced a single objection to Richard about the decision he had made for her. She simply sat there quietly like a breathing doll. Without the slightest emotional response, in a voice only she could hear, she softly whispered that name, Ethan Carter. Vanessa returned from her memories and slowly drifted off to sleep. Holy crap! Was this how the future Villainess tested a man's resolve? What man could possibly withstand a test like that? Well, I did. So, everything was fine. After returning to my room, the earlier scene remained firmly lodged in my mind. She was already this devastating while she was still this young. How dangerous would she become once she grew up? Honestly, I had almost gone along with it. Fortunately, our country had a comprehensive criminal code covering such matters. I stared blankly at the ceiling. Vanessa's actions had genuinely caught me off guard. Apparently, it wasn't only everyone else who believed it. Even Vanessa herself thought I had brought her here because I wanted her body. Wait, no. I really did bring her here because of who she was. Just not for that kind of reason. From the looks of things, the road to raising the future Villainess properly was going to be long and difficult. I sighed, turned off the light, and went to sleep. Early the next morning, when Vanessa came into the living room, I was still preparing breakfast. Our eyes met, and she awkwardly looked away, then obediently sat down on the edge of the couch. After setting out all 4 bowls of noodles, I went into the living room and told her, "You can start eating. Don't wait until the noodles get soggy." Then I went upstairs and knocked on my parents' bedroom door. "Breakfast is ready." They were already awake. William answered through a yawn, "Got it. You two go ahead and eat." When the 3 of them returned to the living room, Vanessa was still sitting on the edge of the couch, carefully studying several sheets of paper that had been left on the coffee table. Grace curiously leaned closer. "What are you looking at?" Vanessa jumped in surprise and hurriedly waved her hands at us. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to look." They were sitting on the table and before I realized it, These are documents on the stores we recently acquired from the Whitmores. Judging by the way you were looking at them, it seems you have some ideas. William recognized the documents and asked Vanessa about them. When Vanessa saw that William didn't seem to be joking, she hesitated for several seconds before carefully saying, "I think these stores." Meanwhile, I pulled Grace over to the dining table and started eating breakfast, quietly observing what was happening in the living room. I listened as Vanessa explained her thoughts to William, one after another, while William nodded gently as he listened. The approval in his eyes grew brighter and brighter. I took a bite of noodles to hide the increasingly smug smile on my face. I had deliberately left those papers there. This was all according to plan. Then someone flicked me on the forehead. Grace looked at me with disdain. "What are you thinking about? Why are you smiling like an idiot?" Then she turned and called out, "Vanessa, that's enough. Come eat first or your food will get cold. What's there to discuss with an old man whose mind is filled with nothing but work? Come over here." When Vanessa sat down at the table, William was still sitting on the couch, flipping through those documents, so I carried his bowl over and placed it on the coffee table. "Well?" I asked casually. William stacked the documents and set them aside. "That girl has genuine talent for business. Richard Whitmore must be blind to have overlooked her for so long." After saying that, William studied me for a moment. "Did you already know about her talent? Is that why you made such a strange demand? And I secretly sent someone to investigate that land. There really might be something buried underneath it. Just think of it as me getting lucky and pulling an SSR." I laughed it off and handed him the bowl. "Eat before it actually gets cold." On the way to take Vanessa to school, the girl in the back seat suddenly said, "Thanks for taking me." "It's fine. I needed to go out anyway." I turned the car around the corner and slowed down on the streets as the city gradually awakened. The atmosphere suddenly became somewhat awkward until the school gates came into view. Only then did Vanessa speak softly, her voice so quiet that she could barely hear herself. "About last night." I parked and turned toward her. Her hair concealed her face, but her exposed ears were slightly red. Vanessa abruptly opened the door and hurried out. "Never mind, I'm leaving." The girl who had been so bold last night was actually embarrassed now. I smiled as I watched Vanessa run away, then drove toward another location. By the time I arrived, everyone else was already there. Ryan greeted me as I entered the private room. "We've been waiting forever. Look, even Noah Bennett fell asleep." As he spoke, Ryan patted the peacefully sleeping Noah beside him. Noah woke up groggy. "Is the food here?" "Not yet, but stop sleeping." I sat down and asked, "Is Tyler still not here? When has Tyler Grant ever arrived anywhere on time?" Ryan's voice carried the helplessness of someone accustomed to it. Beside him, Noah's head swayed and he began nodding off again. Just as I was about to continue speaking, the sound of the door opening came from behind me. Tyler walked in carrying a document envelope. "I walk in and immediately hear you guys talking behind my back. That's pretty cold." Ryan stopped talking and simply raised his head to admire the ceiling. "That ceiling sure is ceiling-shaped." I noticed a document envelope in Tyler's hand. "How bad is it?" "Worse than I expected. I never imagined they had secretly done so many harmful things." Given his family background, Tyler sounded genuinely furious as he said this. Noah finally woke up completely and Ryan also turned his attention back. "So this is why you two called all of us here today?" "That's right." Tyler nodded as he placed the envelope on the table. Inside is evidence of some of the things the Whitmore Group has done over the past few years. Take a look. During the break between classes, Vanessa sat in her seat in the corner. No one came over to talk to her. And because of her personality, she had never considered striking up conversations with anyone else. Simply put, she didn't have any friends at school. She had always spent her school days this way. Yet today, Vanessa somehow found it difficult to adjust. She found herself missing that soft bed from last night. "Vanessa," someone suddenly tapped her gently on the shoulder. Vanessa snapped back to reality and looked toward the person who had touched her. It was a quiet-looking girl who sat beside her. Once she saw Vanessa looking, the girl gestured toward the classroom door. "I think someone's looking for you." "For me?" Confused, Vanessa walked out of the classroom and saw a petite girl standing against the wall beside the door, apparently waiting for someone. Judging by the style of her school uniform, she was probably one grade below Vanessa. "Excuse me, did you need something?" Vanessa asked in confusion. She vaguely felt that the girl looked familiar. "So, you're the Whitmore family's third daughter?" The petite girl circled Vanessa once, studying her while repeatedly nodding. "HM." Although it felt somewhat strange, Vanessa sensed no hostility from her. The petite girl stopped in front of Vanessa, looked up into her eyes, and said, "Come with me." It was worth mentioning that although the petite girl tried very hard to appear intimidating, their difference in height only made her look rather comical. What was she trying to do? Vanessa wondered. Because of her family's circumstances, she was highly sensitive to hostility from others. Her parents, brother, and sister always made her feel uncomfortable, while Ethan and his family did not. Although the girl before her sounded rather fierce, Vanessa sensed no malice from her, just as with Ethan. Vanessa followed the girl into the hallway and quietly waited for her to speak. Then, the petite girl suddenly spun around and rushed up to her. Her previously imposing demeanor vanished instantly. Her eyes opened wide and practically sparkled. She exclaimed excitedly, "Vanessa, do you remember me? We met at Grandpa Bennett's birthday banquet last year. We just didn't speak to each other. I never expected that after seeing you up close, you'd be this beautiful." She was that girl from the Cole family. Vanessa was surprised by the girl's sudden change in demeanor. But after hearing what she said, she remembered why the girl had looked familiar. "My name is Lily Cole." Lily seemed inexplicably excited. "I never expected you to become Ethan's girlfriend. I was shocked when my brother told me." Vanessa immediately wore an expression that said, "What on earth is this girl talking about?" She looked completely bewildered. Her ridiculous behavior from last night suddenly flooded back into her memory. Vanessa's face instantly turned much redder. She became inexplicably self-conscious and raised a hand to brush back her hair. "Don't say things like that. I'm not." Judging by Vanessa's reaction, Lily clearly didn't believe her. She was about to say something else when the bell rang at the worst possible moment. "Already? Then I'll see you at lunch, Vanessa." After a brief flash of disappointment, Lily immediately became cheerful again and ran downstairs with a smile. Vanessa remained standing where she was, listening to the urgent class bell. The girl raised a hand and lightly pressed her palm against her burning cheek. "What's wrong with me?" People have died at their construction sites more than once, but every incident had been covered up. They also frequently withheld their workers' wages. They're truly heartless. The report I got is even more outrageous. It says this company may have been evading taxes. There are also allegations that executives coerced female employees into sexual relationships. Noah, what does your report say? Mine is relatively normal. It only records how a project manager's wife went to the company to catch him cheating only to discover her husband getting extremely intimate with the male janitor. At the very least, I need to see how those words managed to form that sentence. Send it to me. Everyone finished reading. Tyler clapped his hands, signaling us to look at him. "These are only the things I'm allowed to tell you. There are even more serious matters that can't be shared." As he spoke, he looked at me. "You asked me to investigate the Whitmore Group from every possible angle. I thought you were joking, but I never expected to uncover this much. If I didn't have such extensive connections, I probably couldn't have dug any of this up. I have to admit, a lot of this is new to me, too." I read through all the documents with a deep frown. The original novel hadn't explained everything in detail because of its limited length. It never fully described what the Whitmore Group had done before the fully villainous Vanessa brought it down or all the crimes it had committed. Now it seemed they truly deserved everything coming to them. I suddenly remembered something. "By the way, Tyler, those documents you have, can you wait a while before turning them in? What are you planning?" The moment Tyler saw my expression, he knew I had come up with another little scheme. "And wait, but I can't delay for too long." "How long do you want?" I laughed like a villain. "The Whitmore Group took a piece of land from me. Remember? Wait until they begin construction." Noah said, "We all know about that, but why did you hand over the land?" "It has extremely high commercial value." "I have a theory. I don't know whether you guys watch short dramas, but in situations like this, there's usually one possibility." Ryan, who had remained silent until now, spoke up. He looked at me as his glasses mysteriously reflected the light. All he lacked was the Detective Conan theme music and an internal monologue. "There is only one truth. There's an ancient tomb beneath that land." I merely smiled without answering. That was an answer in itself. "Damn, you really are devious." Tyler understood immediately and cursed with a laugh. "Fine, I'll hold off until they begin construction." After thinking for a moment, Noah sighed. "You really are one sneaky bastard." "Hold it. I need to clarify something. I solemnly declare that I'm not old." Ryan said, Yes, you're not old. Speaking of which, How's the newest member of your household? 3 pairs of eyes instantly turned toward me. The situation is exactly what it is. I told them what had happened. Leaving out the part in Vanessa's bedroom last night, then Noah suddenly spoke in a slow voice. So, you're saying a beautiful young girl is living with you now, and your parents will be moving out soon, leaving the two of you alone together? That's right. You deserve to die. Noah turned completely ashen, slumped in his chair, and stared at the ceiling. What should I do if I suddenly want to play tug-of-war between my neck and a ceiling beam? First, that's called hanging yourself. Second, this isn't the first time you've been scammed in an online romance. Could you please learn your lesson? Ryan said helplessly. Also, Ethan, I forgot to tell you. Lily and Vanessa attend the same school. Judging by Lily's mood this morning, Ryan gave me a look that said I was on my own. You better think carefully about how you're going to face Miss Whitmore. I was completely confused, but I understood soon enough. That very evening, Vanessa's attitude toward me became strangely subtle. At first, it was only because of what happened last night that her gaze kept drifting whenever she looked at me. Now, she directly avoided my eyes. Whenever I spoke to her, she froze like a malfunctioning robot. Her only activation phrases were, and got it. The suspicious blush around her ears barely faded at all. I was genuinely afraid the poor girl's head might overheat. Because of that, my mother, who hadn't moved out yet, even came to interrogate me. Did you bully that poor girl? Mom, which one of us is actually your child? There was no need to guess. Just as Ryan had said, Lily must have whispered something into Vanessa's ear. It caused a girl who normally existed in a quantum state between reckless boldness and total cowardice to collapse completely into timidity. Based on what I knew about Lily, her entire personality revolved around shipping couples. She had probably heard something from Ryan and gone completely overboard. 2 more days passed. William and Grace officially moved out. Before leaving, William spoke to me once more and gave me full authority to handle the land. Grace held Vanessa's hand and earnestly talked with her about everyday matters for quite a while. After they left, Vanessa and I officially began living together. However, because Vanessa spent 90% of each day at school, nothing particularly unusual happened. Besides, after escaping her indescribably awful family, the girl became much more cheerful. Every evening when she came home, the way she looked at me gradually shifted from evasive to uncertain and eventually to downright intense. Still, I figured it probably wasn't a serious problem. All right. Based on the Yandere novels I've read, it still felt somewhat dangerous. I needed Ryan to rein Lily in and stop her from adding fuel to the fire. Gradually, we grew accustomed to living under the same roof. During that time, Vanessa didn't do anything strange. That lasted until the first day of her long vacation. Ethan, are you busy tomorrow? Early that morning, Vanessa came into the living room, still wearing her pajamas, and spoke to me as I sat on the couch. I thought for a moment, no, why? Then go on a date with me. The high school girl boldly made her declaration. Early the next morning, I entered the living room fully dressed and found Vanessa already waiting by the front door, completely ready to leave. Instead of her usual pajamas or school uniform, Vanessa wore a light blue off-the-shoulder dress. Its skirt flowed like the rippling surface of a lake. And beneath that lake were the girl's slender ankles and white platform shoes. Her pale, slender arms were folded in front of her, and she held a small handbag in her hands. She looked remarkably well-behaved. She hadn't tied her hair into a ponytail today. Instead, she let her silky long hair fall behind her shoulders. Her flowing black hair softened her entire appearance. Compared with her usual girl-next-door look, Vanessa's outfit today made her look like an elegant young lady. Looking closely, it seemed she had even put on light makeup. Have you been waiting long? I walked over to her. Vanessa discreetly gave me a couple of quick once-overs. Then, as if to cover it up, she raised a fist to her mouth and cleared her throat twice. No, I only just finished getting ready. With that, she opened the door. Then, let's get going. As we walked down the street, the bright sunlight felt warm against our skin. Walking beside Vanessa, I asked, why did you suddenly invite me out? Was this Lily's idea? Vanessa turned to look at me and said with a serious expression. Mentioning another girl during a date cost you 10 points. Oh, I see. After a brief moment of surprise, I finally understood what was going on today. Looking at Vanessa, I couldn't help laughing. This girl was really something. I feel like you're laughing at me. Vanessa pouted. I think you're absolutely right. Upon hearing that, Vanessa started hitting my arm, but she didn't use much force, so I simply let her do it. After all, as Ryan would say, this might count as a reward, too. Since you've already deducted points from me, can you at least tell me the correct answer? Vanessa withdrew her fist and nodded gently. She was just about to answer when her entire body suddenly froze. Her face turned slightly red and she hurriedly shook her head. Maybe not. I could tell, but that only made me even more curious about what exactly the two of them had discussed. By the way, let me confirm something. Vanessa blinked. What is it? I watched her reaction with interest and felt my competitive spirit stir a little. Are there ways to earn bonus points today? Of course, you need bonus point opportunities. That's how you bring out a guy's competitive side. Lily took a bite of cake and spoke to Vanessa with a serious expression. I do this every time I play games with my brother. And I always manage to win his allowance from him. I see. Vanessa listened intently, nodding from time to time. The pen in her hand kept writing notes in a notebook. Of course, the most important thing is learning to adapt. Ah, open your mouth. Lily fed Vanessa a French fry. Vanessa, I asked my brother about it. Ethan is actually really easy to handle. Vanessa nodded to show that she understood. Lily, you know so much. Lily proudly puffed out her chest. I'm a dating sim expert. After saying that, she asked, why did you suddenly decide to ask him on a date? Vanessa thought for a moment because I feel like I've been acting very strange. Sometimes I don't even dare look at him. Lily sat up a little straighter. What else? And the day before yesterday, I accidentally saw him after a shower without a shirt on. That image feels like it's been branded into my mind. As Vanessa continued speaking, she gradually lowered her head and her voice became quieter. Lily's eyes began to sparkle. Then, what do you think of Ethan as a person? He's very kind. If I oversleep, he comes to wake me up. He's a good cook and his food tastes great. He also comes to pick me up when it rains, and he always tilts the umbrella toward me. Vanessa barely had to think. The words came pouring straight out. With a thump, Lily, who had eaten her fill, collapsed contentedly onto the table. A satisfied smile hung on her lips as she gave the confused Vanessa a thumbs up. Good luck. Vanessa accepted her encouragement. But Lily, what exactly is a dating sim? Almost got it. Standing beside the claw machine, I spoke to Vanessa. Vanessa wore an extremely serious expression. Her eyes were fixed on the slowly descending claw. When it successfully caught the stuffed animal by the ear and lifted it into the air, she was so nervous that she held her breath. But anyone who has ever used a claw machine knows that the claw suddenly losing strength halfway through is hardly unusual. The result was that Vanessa watched dejectedly as the toy, almost at the chute, fell back down. The girl let out a disappointed sigh and looked at me pitifully. Don't be discouraged. Watch me. I rubbed Vanessa's head and dropped the last 2 tokens into the machine. I took a deep breath and my gaze sharpened. I carefully calculated the claw's path and landing point. I slammed the button at lightning speed. Together with Vanessa, I watched the claw descend with anticipation. A while later, Vanessa was holding a giant teddy bear. As she walked out of the arcade with me, she buried half her face in the teddy bear's head and spoke in a muffled voice. I really thought you could win one. I must have pressed the button with the wrong technique. We'll come back and try again next time. I rubbed my nose. My attempt to look cool had failed. I had done even worse than Vanessa. The claw hadn't held a single toy for even 1 second. In the end, I chose to use my shortcut. I bought a stuffed animal and gave it to the girl beside me. Although that was what she said, the sparkle in her eyes completely revealed how happy she was. Wait, what were those imaginary special effects floating around her? Before I could figure it out, I felt someone gently tug on my hand. Vanessa hugged the teddy bear tightly with one arm and pointed toward the milk tea shop ahead with her other hand. Want to get a drink? After spending 2 hours in the arcade, I was thirsty, too, so I nodded. Vanessa naturally used the same hand that had just tugged on my finger to take hold of mine. Her hand was very soft and slightly warm. She held my hand gently with both nervousness and uncertainty. Seeing the faint redness spreading across Vanessa's ears, I didn't ruin the mood by pulling away and let her lead me toward the milk tea shop. 1 lemonade with 70% sugar, please, and 1 mint milk tea with 50% sugar. After entering the shop, Vanessa released my hand and gave the employee our order. Only after she finished ordering did she notice me staring at her. She became slightly self-conscious. What's wrong? I answered honestly. I'm just a little surprised. You know what I like? I did a lot of homework over the past 2 days, Ethan. Vanessa pressed her lips together. It seems I'm the only one who prepared for this date. I'll deduct another 5 points. My expression froze. But I really like this bear, so I'll give you 15 bonus points. Vanessa turned away and buried her face in the bear. 100 to 10, 5 plus 15 equals. To be safe, I checked the math several times in my head. My conclusion was that this girl was surprisingly easy to please. While we waited for our drinks, I could tell how much Vanessa liked the teddy bear because she kept rubbing her face against its fluffy ears. Ethan, I want to ask you something. Vanessa tilted her head while holding the bear and looked at me. When I grow up, would you? The employee's voice calling out the order interrupted Vanessa. The girl snapped back to her senses. Seeing the puzzled expression on my face, she said, "And no, it's nothing." Then she hurried over to the counter. We went to the movie theater and watched a comedy, then picked out new clothes for each other. Vanessa had the perfect figure for modeling clothes. Every style looked good on her. I felt like I was playing a fashion dress-up game. Before I knew it, I had bought her a ton of clothes. But what made me curious was that when it was time to pay, Vanessa blushed and paid separately for a small bag. No matter how much I asked, she refused to tell me what was inside. Her embarrassed expression was so amusing that I teased her about it. In the end, the flustered high school girl deducted another 10 points from me. However, she soon gave those points back. Incidentally, all the way until we returned home, that teddy bear never left Vanessa's arms. Did you have fun today? I asked. Yes. No one has ever taken me out to have fun before. Even when my family took me out, it was only to attend business banquets. Vanessa's tone remained calm as though she were talking about someone else. So, these past few days have been the happiest days of my life. And that's exactly why I wanted to confirm my feelings today. And what did you find out? I confirmed that those feelings weren't just a momentary impulse. That's why I also bought this. Vanessa lifted the small bag in her hand. She had let me carry everything else. Yet, she stubbornly refused to let me see the small box she had bought for herself. I had caught a brief glimpse while the clerk was bagging it, but I only knew that it was something black. When I asked what exactly was inside, Vanessa merely said it was a secret weapon that would come in handy later. That only made me even more curious. Vanessa picked up her belongings and prepared to take them back to her room. I also planned to put my own things away. As she entered her bedroom, Vanessa suddenly turned to me. "Ethan, I'll turn 18 in 2 months." Without waiting to see my reaction, she hurriedly shut the door. I remained outside completely confused. I felt as though I had misunderstood something earlier. Surely she wasn't just reminding me to prepare a birthday present for her. Scratching my head, I returned to my room. I had barely put my things down when my phone rang and interrupted my thoughts. It was Ryan. "Ethan, Richard Whitmore is holding a press conference the day after tomorrow. Want to go watch the show?" Ryan's voice came through the phone. I laughed. "A press conference?" "That's right. Construction on that land is starting in a few days. That old bastard has been acting awfully smug lately." Ryan chuckled. "Come to think of it, the timing is almost right. So that's what this is about." "I've been too busy spending time with someone to pay attention to that old man," I said. "Then I'll see you there." "See you there. And don't let Noah hear what you just said. Or he'll try to climb onto a rooftop again." Ryan hung up after saying that. At the banquet a few days later, Ryan said, "Tyler, try this. I think this pastry tastes a little like a cockroach." Ryan handed Tyler one of the pastries from his plate. Tyler frowned and took a bite. "Yeah, it does. It's crunchy, salty, and slightly bitter." Noah calmly spoke from beside them. "No, cockroaches don't taste like this." "I'm absolutely certain." I stood nearby, staring at these 3 lunatics, and wondering whether I should move farther away. This banquet was quite large. Nearly everyone attending was a wealthy and influential business owner. Several of them were even richer than my family. "Did you hand over the documents?" I asked Tyler. Tyler nodded. "Don't worry, the timing is perfect. By the way, isn't the girl staying with you coming today?" The moment Tyler finished speaking, Noah smacked him on the back of the head. "Could you use your brain? Think about what we're doing today. Would it be appropriate for her to appear here?" Ryan sighed. Your emotional intelligence always shows up in the strangest situations. But didn't Vanessa say anything about this? She did. I fell silent for 2 seconds. She gave me the password to Richard's safe. She said all the evidence was inside. Damn. After a long silence, the three of them finally managed that single word. We were about to discuss something else when an unpleasant voice interrupted us. Olivia's deliberately seductive voice came from behind me. Well, isn't this Mr. Carter? Has my useless little sister caused you any trouble lately? Olivia, don't be rude. Daniel gave his sister a perfunctory reprimand. Then he put on a fake smile and extended his hand toward me. Ethan, and you three, it's been a long time. At that same moment, Richard stepped onto the stage and prepared to give his speech. I stared at Daniel's outstretched hand, then reached in front of Ryan and handed Daniel the plate of pastries from earlier. Several people watching nearby couldn't hold back their laughter. Daniel's expression darkened with embarrassment. Ethan, I don't recall offending you. Or have you genuinely fallen for my youngest sister and decided to stand up for her? So, you're aware that what your family did was bad enough to make someone defend her? I accepted the glass of juice Tyler handed me. Let me give you a little preview. There is going to be quite a show today. I smiled as I looked Daniel and Olivia in the eyes. Do you think you'll be members of the audience or part of the cast? The next moment, the banquet hall doors were violently thrown open. A large group of people stormed inside. Richard was delivering his speech enthusiastically from the stage when halfway through his sentence, he was interrupted by the group that had entered. At the front was a middle-aged man in uniform. Behind him were several similarly dressed officials along with several police officers. They were also accompanied by several people wearing business suits. They walked directly toward the stage. Every guest in the hall immediately turned to watch them. The entire venue fell silent. Mr. Whitmore, we are a joint investigative team from the Municipal Tax Bureau and the Police Department. The middle-aged man displayed his identification. According to reliable evidence, the Whitmore Group is suspected of multiple serious legal violations. Please cooperate with our investigation. Richard's smile froze on his face. This must be a misunderstanding. The Whitmore Group has always obeyed the law. We will determine whether it is a misunderstanding through our investigation. Please cooperate with our work. The middle-aged man's voice carried unquestionable authority. Mr. Daniel Whitmore and Miss Olivia Whitmore. You must also cooperate with the investigation. Members of the investigative team walked toward us. Daniel's face turned deathly pale. He hurriedly looked toward the stage. Dad, what's going on? Olivia was so frightened that she stepped backward. I don't know anything. Before Richard could answer, one of the suited men stepped forward and removed several documents from his briefcase. There is one more matter, Mr. Whitmore. According to our investigation, beneath the land where your company is about to begin construction, there is a large ancient tomb. Therefore, we need you to cooperate with our work. Under normal circumstances, you would receive compensation, but considering the current situation, the suited man exchanged a glance with the official. Please cooperate with the police investigation first. No, that's impossible. Richard snatched the documents away like a madman. The more he read, the paler his face became. Finally, his legs gave out and he collapsed to his knees. I quietly watched the scene unfold and took a sip of juice. What do you think about recording this and taking it home? Noah waved his phone. I'll send you the video later. Send me a copy, too. Ryan adjusted his glasses and admired the banquet descending into chaos. They arrived right on time. Of course, Tyler said proudly. Look who arranged everything. Noah appeared thoughtful. Do you think Richard's safe, the one Vanessa gave you the password to, might contain even more explosive evidence? I set down my glass. Let's go. This place is about to become even more chaotic. We turned and left. Before leaving, I glanced back at Richard. The devastated man happened to look in my direction. A smile curled across my lips. I gently raised the glass in my hand to him, then walked away without looking back. Behind me, Richard roared Ethan's name in furious desperation. After stepping out of the banquet hall, the fresh air outside immediately refreshed us. What are you planning to do next? Tyler asked me. Once the investigation results are released, the Whitmore Group will probably face restructuring or bankruptcy liquidation. I adjusted my suit jacket. When that happens, the Carter family will participate in the auction and acquire some of their valuable assets. Ryan nodded. Ryan added, my family will probably participate, too. You're all joining in? Then I'm joining, too. Noah suddenly chimed in. After saying goodbye to each other, I drove home. My phone vibrated on the way. It was a message from Vanessa. Are you coming home for dinner? I made a few dishes. I smiled and replied, I'll be there soon. When I opened the front door, the aroma of food rushed toward me. Vanessa, wearing an apron, poked her head out of the kitchen. You came back at the perfect time. I just finished the last dish. Her expression was calm, just as it usually was. 3 dishes and a soup were arranged on the dining table. They were all ordinary home-cooked dishes, but they looked delicious. I tasted a piece of braised pork. This is delicious. When did you learn to cook? Back when I lived there. The servants often forgot to prepare food for me. Fortunately, they never forbade me from using the kitchen. Vanessa spoke as though it were nothing and placed some vegetables into my bowl. What happened today is already on the news. My hand paused slightly as I picked up some food. How do you feel about it? Vanessa continued eating quietly. I don't feel anything in particular. They stopped being my family a long time ago. Seeing them end up like this actually makes me feel quite satisfied. She raised her head, her gaze clear and sincere. From the day you took me away, my only family has been you and your parents. I have a video from the scene. Want to watch it? Yes. I feel like I could eat 2 more bowls after watching it. You should probably eat less or you'll upset your stomach. As I spoke, I handed her my phone. Nothing else particularly noteworthy happened afterward. The Whitmore family was overwhelmed dealing with its own problems and had no time to cause trouble for us. Time passed until Vanessa's 18th birthday. Early that morning, the doorbell woke me up. When I opened the door, Ryan and Lily along with Noah and Tyler were standing outside carrying bags of all sizes. Why are you all here? I rubbed my sleepy eyes. It's the birthday girl's big day, Lily said with a cheerful smile. Vanessa invited us. Only then did I remember that Vanessa had mentioned inviting some friends. Ethan, those pajamas? Tyler looked me up and down with a strange expression, very distinctive. I looked down and realized I was still wearing my dinosaur onesie. It had been a Christmas gift from my mother last year. You guys simply don't understand. Dragons are symbols of emperors. Ryan laughed. That means Ethan is ready to declare himself emperor. Keep making puns like that and I'll puncture my own eardrums. After letting them inside, I returned to my room to change. Give me a few minutes. When I came back out, Vanessa was awake too and was greeting the guests in the living room. The guests were giving the birthday girl their presents. Vanessa wore a white dress today with her hair tied into a ponytail using a ribbon. She looked fresh and radiant. Happy birthday. I walked over and handed her the present I had prepared. Vanessa's eyes lit up and her smile grew even brighter. Thank you. Aren't you going to open it? She shook her head. I'll open it with the other presents later. Lily moved closer. Vanessa. My brother and the others brought a barbecue grill. How about having a barbecue in the yard for lunch? I'm fine with that. Vanessa looked at me with a questioning look in her eyes. I nodded. Then I'll prepare the ingredients. Ryan, come help me. The morning passed like that. The villa was filled with a joyful atmosphere. Vanessa looked genuinely happy, smiling far more often than usual. However, halfway through the barbecue, the doorbell suddenly rang, announcing an uninvited guest. I went to open the front door alone. An unexpected person was standing outside, Olivia Whitmore. She looked much more haggard than before. Her eyes were red and swollen, as though she had been crying. What are you doing here? I frowned. I want to see Vanessa, Olivia said quietly. Dad and Daniel have both been taken away. The family is in complete chaos. Mom sent me to find Vanessa because she thought Vanessa might be able to help. I raised an eyebrow. Now you remember she exists. What about the way you treated her before? Olivia bit her lip. I know we were wrong. Ethan. Vanessa's voice came from behind me. She walked to the doorway and froze when she saw Olivia. Vanessa, we were wrong. Could you please ask Ethan, too? Olivia began speaking through her tears, but Vanessa interrupted her. Olivia, if you came here to apologize, I accept your apology, Vanessa said calmly. But if you came asking for help, I'm sorry, but I can't help you. Vanessa, we're family. Olivia cried anxiously. Family? Vanessa found that almost laughable. Family who treated me like a servant, used me as a bargaining chip, and were never there when I needed them most. She took a deep breath. From the day you forced me to leave, I stopped having anything to do with the Whitmore family. Olivia tried to say something else, but I had already closed the door. Are you okay? I asked Vanessa softly. Just like I told you before. I don't care about them. Vanessa shook her head and smiled at me. Let's go back before all the meat burns. The birthday party continued into the evening. After the guests left, the villa became quiet again. Vanessa happily opened her presents in the living room. With every gift she opened, the happiness in her smile grew a little deeper. Her face was flushed, probably because she had secretly taken a few sips of alcohol while I wasn't looking. This one is from you. She picked up the gift box I had given her and carefully opened it. Inside was an exquisite necklace. The pendant was shaped like a bear. You seem to really like that teddy bear from before, so I thought you might like this necklace, too. Actually, it also depends on who gave it to me, Vanessa said. Vanessa handed me the necklace. Could you help me put it on? I walked behind her and lifted her long hair before fastening the necklace around her neck. My fingers accidentally brushed the skin on the back of her neck. She trembled slightly. Done. Vanessa turned around and stroked the necklace with her fingers, her eyes sparkling. This is the happiest birthday I've ever had. Thank you, Ethan. I'm glad you like it. It's getting late. You've had a long day, too, so you should get some rest. I could see the exhaustion in the girl's expression. Vanessa bit her lower lip. Wait a little longer. Ethan, I have a present for you, too. Think of it as thanks for taking care of me all this time. I genuinely hadn't expected this. I asked in surprise. What present? Let me prepare it first. You'll find out soon. After saying that, the girl gathered up all her presents and hurried back to her room. Why was she being so mysterious? Honestly though, I was deeply touched. I waited in the living room with countless thoughts running through my mind. But 10 minutes passed and Vanessa still showed no sign of coming downstairs. Could something have happened to her? After all, she seemed to have drunk some alcohol. I frowned slightly and quickly walked to Vanessa's bedroom. I raised my hand to knock. Are you all right? Before I could finish, and before my hand even touched the door, the tightly shut bedroom door suddenly opened. A slender arm pulled with astonishing strength, dragging me into the room before I could react. Then I was pushed down onto the bed. I stared at the ceiling, my head buzzing for a moment. What just happened? Ethan? I once accidentally saw your photo collection. I noticed that most of the women in it were wearing something like this, so I wondered whether you really liked them. Vanessa's dangerously seductive voice came from beside the bed. That statement alone was enough to make my heart race. Before I could sit up, she climbed on top of me. She grabbed both my wrists and pinned them beside my head. Her face was still bright red. I couldn't tell whether it was from the alcohol or embarrassment. After hearing what she had said, my gaze instinctively moved downward. Vanessa's knees were planted on the bed on either side of my waist. Her long legs were wrapped in thin black silk stockings, making it nearly impossible to look away. You're drunk. I tried to avert my gaze, but admitted defeat in less than half a second and began staring without blinking. I'm completely sober. I only drank a little to give myself courage. Ethan, do you remember what you told me that night? Vanessa asked. I didn't understand immediately. What? You said I had to wait until I was an adult. Vanessa shook her head and leaned down slightly. Only a few inches remained between our faces. I saw a new aggressiveness in Vanessa's hazy eyes, now that she was legally an adult. Vanessa slowly ran her tongue across her lips and leaned close to my ear. Ethan, I turned 18 today. The next morning, my vibrating phone woke me up. When I checked the time, it was nearly noon. Fortunately, I didn't have anything planned today. With that thought, I carefully pulled my arm out of Vanessa's embrace. I quietly stepped into the hallway before answering the call. What is it, Mom? I asked. Grace replied. Come outside and help me carry these things. Your father went to the office and I can't carry everything by myself. What things? I asked while heading downstairs. Grace answered. The birthday presents I prepared for Vanessa. Yesterday was for you young people. Today it's our turn to give her presents. After helping Mom carry 7 or 8 bags inside, Grace asked, "Where is Vanessa?" "She wore herself out yesterday and is still resting." I tried to keep my expression from looking strange. Upon hearing that, Grace frowned and carefully examined me. When her gaze finally landed on my neck, an understanding smile appeared on her face. "You haven't looked in the mirror yet today, have you?" She opened her phone's camera and showed me the obvious red marks on my neck. Meanwhile, inside the bedroom, the morning sunlight slipped through a gap in the curtains and cast warm golden patches across the wooden floor. When Vanessa woke up, the space beside her was already empty. She rubbed her eyes and sat up. The blanket slid from her shoulder, revealing red marks near her collarbone. She could faintly hear voices coming from downstairs. After washing up, she changed into comfortable clothes and went downstairs. She saw Grace stacking several gift boxes on the coffee table. "Mrs. Carter." Vanessa looked surprised. Grace looked up with a warm smile. "You're awake. Come here. These are all birthday presents for you. Yesterday's gifts were from Ethan and your friends. Today's are from Mr. Carter and me." Vanessa walked over and sat down on the couch. Grace naturally took her hand and looked her over affectionately. She noticed the marks on Vanessa's neck that matched those on her son, but said nothing about them. She merely asked gently, "Have you gotten used to living here?" "Yes, it still feels like a dream." Vanessa spoke softly. "Sometimes when I wake up in the morning, I still think I'm in that tiny room at the Whitmore house." Grace gently patted the back of her hand. "Don't worry, Ethan may seem unreliable sometimes, but he takes things more seriously than anyone. Since he brought you home, he'll definitely take responsibility for you." Vanessa's face warmed slightly as she lowered her head. "I know. Good." Grace smiled and opened a gift box. Inside was a complete set of jade jewelry. "My mother gave this to me when I got married. Now I'm passing it on to you. This is far too valuable. Take it." Refusing to accept any objection, Grace placed the jade necklace around her neck, then nodded with satisfaction. "It looks beautiful. It was going to belong to you eventually." Vanessa froze. She understood the meaning behind Grace's smile, and her face instantly turned red. "Breakfast is ready." I walked out of the kitchen and called to them. Several years later, the wedding venue was packed with guests. Relatives and friends from both families, business partners, and plenty of people who had simply come to watch filled the seats. Ryan was serving as the best man. Secretly adjusting his overly tight bow tie, he muttered under his breath, "Who designed this thing? It feels like a noose. Very stylish." Noah and Tyler sat in the front row with Tyler holding up his phone to record. Noah immediately pushed it down. "Are you live streaming this? Could you show some manners? I'm recording it to send to the group." Lily asked me to. "Why didn't you say so? Angle it a little more this way. Make sure you get his mother in the shot, too." Lily stood beside the stage as a bridesmaid. Her eyes brimmed with emotion. She clutched a tissue and kept sniffling. Tyler glanced at her. "Why is she crying?" Noah calmly replied. "The couple she's been shipping finally got married." "You'd cry, too." Music began to play. The closed doors at the front slowly opened. Vanessa stood in the doorway wearing a white wedding gown with a veil draped gently over her head. She stood there alone, looking at me on the stage with a faint smile on her lips. Someone among the guests whispered, "Why is the bride alone?" I heard she's the daughter of the Whitmore family. Her family fell apart so no one could escort her. Before the person finished speaking, Vanessa began walking forward. Her steps were steady, one after another, and her eyes never left me. She had no father beside her and no family to see her off. Yet she walked more resolutely than anyone. Standing on the stage, I watched her approach me and suddenly remembered the girl who had sat in the back seat years ago, hiding herself in the shadows. Back then, she had asked, "Why did you choose me?" Now, I could finally answer her. "Because from the very beginning, I wanted to see what you would look like standing in the sunlight." She reached me and placed her hand in mine. "Have you been waiting long?" she asked softly. "Not long," I said. "Only a few years." She smiled, her eyes slightly red. The officiant began reciting the vows, but neither of us was really listening. "Ethan Carter, do you take Miss Vanessa Whitmore to be your wife? In poverty or wealth, in sickness or in health?" "I do." "Vanessa Whitmore, do you take Mr. Ethan Carter to be your husband?" "I do." The officiant froze. "I haven't finished asking yet." "You don't need to," Vanessa said. I do. The guests burst into laughter. Lily cried even harder, smacking Ryan as she sobbed. Ryan, did you see that? Vanessa is so cool. Ryan rolled his eyes. I saw it. Now loosen my tie first. It's choking me. While exchanging rings, I took Vanessa's hand and suddenly noticed a small callus on her finger. It had formed from years of doing homework and writing business plans. I slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. When it was her turn to put my ring on, her hands trembled slightly. She struggled for ages without getting it on. Stop shaking, I whispered. I'm not shaking, she denied it, but her hands shook even more. The guests laughed again. After finally getting the ring on, she sighed in relief and glared at me. I leaned closer and whispered, You were pretty energetic last night. Why are your hands shaking now? Her face turned red and she stepped on my foot. The officiant finally found an opportunity to speak. The groom may now kiss the bride. I lifted her veil and looked at her made-up face. But her eyes were still the same, clear and bright with a hint of playful mischief. Ethan, she suddenly called softly. Thank you. For what? She didn't answer. She stood on tiptoe and kissed me. Thunderous applause erupted from the guests. Lily cried so hard that she nearly fainted and only remained standing because Ryan held her up. A long time later, Vanessa finally whispered in my ear, Thank you for being willing to wait until I grew up. After the wedding ceremony came the reception. I went from table to table offering toasts. Vanessa had changed into a red reception dress and stayed beside me. When we reached my friend's table, Ryan was already bright red from drinking. He stood and raised his glass. Ethan, this one's for you. We've been friends for so many years, and I've finally lived to see you get married. I raised my glass. Don't drink too much. You still have to help me get home later. Relax. Don't you know how well I can hold my liquor? Ryan drained his glass in one gulp, then immediately collapsed onto the table. Noah calmly propped him upright. He passes out after one drink, yet he always insists on showing off. Tyler approached with his phone raised. Come on, stand together. I'll take a picture. Vanessa and I stood side by side. She linked her arm through mine and smiled sweetly. Tyler examined the photo after taking it and clicked his tongue twice. Not bad. You could use this as a wedding photo. This is a wedding photo. I mean the kind you hang on the wall. That isn't called a wedding photo. It's called a bridal portrait. Same difference. Noah added from beside him. He doesn't even have a girlfriend. There's no point explaining any of this to him. Tyler glared at Noah. Are you looking for a fight? When we reached Lily's table, her eyes were still red. The moment she saw us approaching, she stood and spread her arms. Vanessa, I want a hug. Vanessa smiled and hugged her. Lily sobbed against her shoulder. You two have to be happy together. You have to, or the ship I've supported all these years will sink. We will. Vanessa patted her back. Lily released her and turned toward me. Her expression suddenly turned serious. Ethan, if you ever treat Vanessa badly, I'll be the first person to object. And how exactly will you object? I'll make my brother stop being friends with you. Ryan, already passed out beside her, suddenly raised his head. What? Who's ending a friendship? No, we can't stop being friends. Then he collapsed again. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. All right. All right. I'll remember that. Near the end of the reception, Vanessa went to the restroom to touch up her makeup. I stood alone in a corner drinking water when someone suddenly approached me. It was Olivia. After several years apart, she looked much more worn down. She wore an ordinary dress and none of her former arrogance remained on her face. Mr. Carter. She stood before me somewhat awkwardly. I looked at her without speaking. I only wanted to come see Vanessa. She spoke softly. I know she doesn't want to see me. I don't deserve to appear before her either, but today is her wedding. She paused, then looked up at me. Could you pass a message to her for me? Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I wish her happiness. I looked at her and remained silent for several seconds. Tell her yourself. Olivia froze, then followed my gaze. Vanessa had returned at some point and was standing nearby. The two sisters stared at each other from several yards apart. Vanessa walked over and stood beside me, looking at Olivia. Vanessa. Olivia's lips moved, but Vanessa said, I heard everything. Vanessa continued calmly. I accept your good wishes. Olivia's eyes grew even redder. Vanessa, about everything that happened before. The past is over. Vanessa interrupted her. I won't forgive any of you, but I won't keep hating you forever either. That would be too exhausting. She paused, then gently linked her arm through mine. I'm very happy now. I have a husband who loves me, parents-in-law who care about me, and genuine friends. That's enough. Tears rolled down Olivia's cheeks. She nodded repeatedly. Good. That's good. She turned to leave. After walking several steps, she looked back at Vanessa one final time, then disappeared into the crowd. Vanessa leaned against my shoulder and sighed softly. Are you okay? I asked. I'm fine. She looked up and smiled at me. Let's go. We still haven't finished toasting all the guests. The reception ended and the guests gradually departed. Noah and Tyler dragged Ryan toward the car between them. Even as they left, he clung to the window and shouted, Ethan, congratulations on the wedding. Tomorrow, I'll call you when I wake up. Try waking up first. Noah shoved him back into the car and closed the door. Before Lily got into the car, she ran back and hugged Vanessa again. Vanessa, I'm leaving. I'll message you tomorrow. Remember to reply. Okay. And one more thing. She leaned close and whispered something into Vanessa's ear. Vanessa's face instantly turned red. Lily giggled and ran back to the car, making a heart with her hands before closing the door. The car drove away, and the entrance to the villa finally became quiet. Vanessa and I stood by the door, watching the last car's taillights disappear into the night. Tired? I asked. I'm okay. My feet are just a little sore. I wore high heels for too long. She leaned against my shoulder. Then let's go inside. Okay. Late that night in the bridal suite, we opened the bedroom door and found that someone had already decorated it. The sheets and comforter were bright red. Flower petals were scattered across the pillows. Scented candles sat on the nightstand along with a bottle of red wine and 2 glasses. Vanessa froze for a moment. Did your mom decorate this? Who else could it have been? I walked inside and picked up the wine bottle. She even prepared wine. Want some? She shook her head. I've had enough to drink today. Then why don't you take a shower? She nodded and entered the bathroom. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the sound of running water inside. Suddenly, everything felt a little unreal. It had been years from the day I brought her out of the Whitmore house until now. The time seemed to have passed in the blink of an eye. Back then, she had been a gloomy high school girl who hid herself in the shadows and barely spoke more than a few words. And now, the bathroom door opened. Vanessa stepped out in a nightgown. Her wet hair draped over her shoulders and her face flushed from the steam. She sat down at the vanity and began drying her hair. I walked over and took the towel from her hand. I'll do it. She froze briefly, then obediently sat still and let me dry her hair. Ethan. She suddenly said. Was what you said at the wedding true, that it was only a few years? What do you mean? You said waiting for me was only a few years. She looked at me through the mirror. Do you really think it didn't feel long? I thought for a moment. It felt long and short at the same time. What does that mean? It felt long because you have no idea how hard it was for me to wait. I put down the towel and picked up the hairdryer. A beautiful high school girl was constantly walking around in front of me and I had to restrain myself. Do you know how much self-control that takes for an ordinary guy? She burst out laughing. Then how did you manage? Thanks to our country's comprehensive criminal justice system. I turned on the hairdryer and began drying her hair. Warm air blew steadily and she sat there quietly, occasionally glancing at me through the mirror. Once her hair was mostly dry, I turned off the dryer and tucked her hair behind her ears. She looked at me through the mirror, her eyes shining. Ethan. Thank you for waiting for me. I lowered my head and kissed the top of her hair. You're welcome. She turned around to face me and wrapped both arms around my waist. Then now. She tilted her head up, a hint of mischief in her eyes. Does that mean you don't have to hold back anymore? I raised an eyebrow. Weren't you tired? I'm not tired after taking a shower. She buried her face in my chest. Her voice muffled. Besides, tonight is our wedding night. I looked down at her and suddenly smiled. Vanessa. Do you know who you look exactly like right now? Who? That little girl from years ago who pinned me against a chair in her nightgown and asked whether I wanted her to repay me. Her body stiffened and her face instantly turned red. You still remember that? Of course. I bent down and leaned close to her ear. I ran away back then. And now, she looked up, her eyes sparkling as she gazed at me. I'm not running this time, I said. She smiled and wrapped her arms around my neck, pulling me down. The candle on the nightstand flickered gently. The moonlight outside was perfect, and the night was still young. One day after the wedding, Vanessa was organizing the closet when she suddenly called, "Ethan, come here for a second." I walked over and saw her holding an old ribbon. It was the one tied around the dress from our first date when we went shopping. What is it? Look. She unfolded the ribbon and pointed to a line of tiny writing on it. I leaned closer and saw several words written in black marker, "For the future, Mrs. Carter." I froze. When did you write that? I didn't. She looked at me, her eyes smiling. You did that day. Don't you remember? I searched my memory and suddenly recalled that after we finished shopping, the clerk folded the dress and placed it in a bag, then tied it with a ribbon. I really had taken the bag and written something on the ribbon. I thought you didn't see it. I rubbed my nose. I saw it. She carefully folded the ribbon and placed it back in the box. When I returned to my room that night, I stared at it for a long time. Then why didn't you say anything? What was I supposed to say? She looked up, her eyes sparkling. Ethan, are you planning to marry me? What if you had said it was only a joke? I was serious even then. I know. She walked over and hugged me. That's why I waited. Waited for what? For the day you would truly marry me. I looked down at her, suddenly feeling emotional. This girl had noticed everything from the very beginning and remembered every detail. She simply never said anything. Vanessa, I called. Do you know you can be pretty scary sometimes? She blinked. Why? Because you're far too patient. You can hide your love for someone for years and endure wanting something for years, too. Aren't you afraid you'll make yourself sick? She thought seriously for a moment. But look what my patience got me. She looked up and smiled. It got me you. I froze briefly, then laughed. All right, you're good with words. #bonus chapter 2. Lily's couple watching diary. Lily's private notes. Date, wedding day. Today's entry. Vanessa and Ethan got married. I cried like a baby at the ceremony. Seriously, I never imagined shipping a couple could affect me this deeply. I started shipping them before they even knew each other, then watched them move in together, go on dates, and finally get married. My life is complete. Vanessa looked absolutely gorgeous today and Ethan looked incredibly handsome. While they were exchanging rings, Vanessa's hands shook so badly that she couldn't get his ring on. Ethan whispered something that made her step on his foot. When the officiant told them to kiss, Vanessa stood on tiptoe and kissed him first. Ethan froze for a second before wrapping his arms around her. I'm so touched. Date, 1 month after the wedding. I went to their house for dinner today. Vanessa's cooking keeps getting better. Ethan helped her in the kitchen and they worked together perfectly. Watching them, I suddenly remembered that Vanessa couldn't cook a few years ago. She could only eat instant noodles back then. Vanessa put food in Ethan's bowl and Ethan served Vanessa some soup.